the entire structure of the American government laid out for you and the U.S. government laid out for you. This is kind of a combination or flowing together, an integration of what we've talked about in the first two Granobites. The first Granobite was about the basics of the American and U.S. governments, and then the second one was about jurisdiction. And this is where we bring it all together. All right? Remember, we have the states. Okay? These are the states we all think of, the sovereign entities that created the government for this country. And each one of these states is a nation state. The nation being the people who live in that state, and the state being the physical groundwork, the landmarks, the land, rivers, trees, the soil, and the subsoil. Okay? The states are governed by state assemblies. All right? Simple enough. These guys roll over all the rest of it. Now, here we go. We have the American government. And there are three instrumentalities of the states. In 1776, we have the United States Unincorporated, also known as the Union. Okay, this is the first Union, has nothing to do with the Union during the Civil War. Then we have, in 1776 also, the United States of America Unincorporated, our Federation. And finally, in 1781, we have the States of America Unincorporated Confederation. Both the United States Unincorporated and the Federation have been in complete, they've been in session since 1776. In 1781, the Confederation disappeared. It ceased to function and became inoperable because they no longer had a quorum to conduct business when the Southern state-of-state organizations walked out. Okay, so these are instrumentalities of the states. In addition, we have the United States government, and that involves three subcontractors, three federal subcontractors, and they all operate under constitutions. Again, here we have the Federal Republic, which was run by the Confederation of States, and it too has been missing in action since the 1860s. It was operated under the Constitution for the United States of America. Notice that United is not part of the name of the organization that received the contract. The actual name of the American organization receiving the contract, our Confederation, was States of America. This Constitution, known as the original Federal Constitution, came into effect in 1787. But the Federal Republic that it was designed to operate has been missing in action since the 1860s. Next, among the subcontractors, we have the Constitution of the United States of America, which came into effect in 1789. This is the British Territorial subcontractor responsible for the Territorial United States government. It's controlled and operated by district assemblies, like the District 4 of the state of Alaska. And finally, we have the Constitution of the United States, which came into effect in 1790, and it rules the municipal government, sets up its structure, and provides for the district to have a separate government for itself. This is the municipal district assemblies. And here you see the flags that are involved in all of this. Now, these are the actual American flags. You can see that they're kind of chubby looking. Okay, they're much closer to a square than the flags on this side. These are Title IV flags. The Title IV flags were defined for the use of our federal subcontractor, the United States of America, British Territorial Government. So they're very similar, but their proportions are different. The actual American flags that are flown by the Federation are thicker, like this, whereas the flags flown under Title IV by our subcontractors are much more elongated and rectangular, like this. And this over here is the municipal flag of the city of Washington, D.C. It's a separate international city-state. And part of the problem that we're having right now with the January 6th protest prosecutions is that Americans over here on this side haven't understood that when they go over here into the District of Columbia, they are actually entering a foreign government with foreign space. Okay, the District of Columbia operates under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the Enclave Clause, which creates essentially a separate country within this country. They have plenary oligarchy in the municipality of Washington, D.C., meaning that the members of Congress can do whatever they like in the municipality of Washington, D.C., as an international independent city-state. And within the district, the Congress has the right to exclusive legislation, which means that it controls the District of Columbia just like a separate country. Now, all of this is probably a lot of news for many Americans, but as you can see, there are state assemblies giving rise to all of this, the instrumentalities, the subcontractors, and these states have jurisdiction in all 5 jurisdictions. So now let's bring in the jurisdictional aspects. As we learned last week, there are 5 jurisdictions. There's air, soil, maritime jurisdiction, and land underlying everything. Then we have the admiralty jurisdiction going out beyond the limitations of our boundary waters. So each one of these involves its own form of law. Each one of these involves multiple interfaces. But the important take-home point for right now is that only the air and the land are universal. The air exists overall, and the land underpins or supports everything from underneath, even if it's under the sea, right? So the 2 primary jurisdictions are air and land for that reason. and then the soil and the maritime jurisdiction butt up against everything. This will become crucial to kind of visualize and understand as you go forward, because it speaks to the issue of political status and where we are standing at any given time in terms of what law are we standing under as subjects, under what conditions do those definitions apply, and how did we get in this mess? Now, if you go through this again, we have the original Union, the Federation, and the Confederation, which are instrumentalities of the states. And then we have 3 subcontractors that mirror our American instrumentalities. Because why? Because some of the powers of the American instrumentalities over on this side got shared with these subcontractors as part of the implementation of the treaties that ended the War of Independence. Back then, our representatives went to Paris, and they went to Ghent in Belgium, and they made many different deals to put an end to the war and actually get to the point of arriving at peace treaties with all these different parties. The constitutions are the implementation of those deals. And essentially, they were all power-sharing agreements where, first of all, the Union gave delegated authority to the Federation. The Federation gave delegated authority to the Confederation. The Confederation then was responsible for the operation of the Federal Republic subcontractor, and the Federation is responsible for the operations of the British Territorial subcontractor, ultimately, and the Union is responsible for the operations of the municipal subcontractor. Now, all of this is really complex, folks. I know that. And it's taken a long time for us to delve out all the ins and outs of how this is supposed to work. But on another level, it's not really that hard to grasp, because these entities are mirrored with the instrumentalities being mirrored by delegated authorities. And in the end, all of them are operating under delegated authorities from the states. Because remember, the only truly independent sovereign entities that exist in this entire description of our government are the states. That's why they call them the sovereign states. So the states give rise to all the rest of this. And without the states, none of this works, because it requires the support of the states to pay for any of it. So the instrumentalities and the subcontractors that are working in these 5 different jurisdictions, each one with a separate mission, so to speak, are all dependent on the states. Now, I'm sure I've given you enough information to keep you busy for a couple of weeks here, just scratching your heads and thinking about it. And as we go forward next week, we'll be doing another demonstration, and we'll be looking at the relationships between each one of the subcontractors and each one of the instrumentalities. Till then. Hello campers, another bright and cheerful day here in Alaska. Want to go over some material that we didn't cover yesterday, and I want to very briefly review what we covered yesterday. Basically, we described the American government and its three instrumentalities, the Union, the Federation, and the Confederation. And we reviewed the United States government, our three federal subcontractors, the Federal Republic, the British Territorial United States, and the municipal United States governments. So basically, 6 different entities, 3 instrumentalities, 3 federal subcontractors, and for today I wanted you to take a good look at the orange arrows here. As you can see, among the 3 American instrumentalities, the Union and the Federation both stand under the Declaration of Independence, whereas the Confederation stand under the Articles of Confederation. And over here, the federal subcontractors each stand under a constitution. Okay? Now, our saying for the day, liberty cannot be preserved without general knowledge among the people, from John Adams. Okay? One of our great founders, one of the most committed men among all of the founding fathers. John Adams was a great proponent of popular education. So you didn't get this in school, but you're getting it now. So congratulations. You're fulfilling your part in the American dream here. Now, yesterday we briefly went over the different flags, and we explained that the American flags are boxier. They have a different proportion than the U.S. versions that they borrow from us under Title IV. And finally, we also have the municipal flag, and we have the 5 jurisdictions. So how does this all sort out? Well, it sorts out like this. The municipal government is in charge of the air. The American government, under the peace flag, is in charge of the soil and land. The territorial government, with the Title IV flag, is in charge of maritime jurisdiction. And the Navy, the U.S. Navy, is in charge of admiralty. So as you can see, there are 5 jurisdictions, 4 flags, and the land and the soil are at peace. They're flying the peace flag. The air jurisdiction is flying the municipal flag, which is an international city-state. The maritime is flying the Title IV British Territorial flag, and the Navy is flying the American flag. Now anybody who made it through Navy boot camp knows what this is about. The Title IV flag in maritime is for the Maritime Merchant Marine Service, and the Navy, the actual Navy, is for the Admiralty Service. Okay, that's probably enough for you to observe and absorb today on that particular part of it. So now we're going to discuss one of the most difficult and confusing of all the many confusing things there are about our government and its history. And it's one of the simplest, most fundamental, inescapable parts, and that is, what is the United States? Okay? Well, of course we have our states. Everything comes forward from our states. So our 50 states are responsible for creating and funding and taking part in all of this in one way or another. But I'm talking now about the name, the United States. All right, well, how does the United States become an entity, right? Well, it turns out that it started with the Dutch East India Company getting into a scrap called the 1702 Bottomry Bonds Scandal, in which they basically made up fictitious names of ships with fictitious cargoes, insured them, and then claimed that they were wrecked at sea and charged the insurance companies for all their losses. This was a big enough scandal so that they basically had to beat feet out of town, and so they moved to Boston and changed the name. And they changed it to the United States Trading Company. Makes sense, right? It all started with a scandal and some pirates having to escape town. Okay, so that was part of it. Then we have the United States Trading Company, and we see that it is American and continental European investors. We see that it's a variety of nations involved in this. We have the Dutch, the Germans, the French, the Italians, Spanish, Swedish, Danish. All sorts of European investors and American investors are involved in the United States Trading Company. But it's primarily continental European investors. And most of them have an affiliation with the Holy See or are Catholic companies or individuals who are Catholic. So this company has a heritage that is largely Catholic, often related to the Holy Roman Empire, and it contains both American and continental European investors from the very get-go. Okay, so then we come to what I call the Great Split. And what happened was that the War of Independence took place, and the investors in the group had to make a choice about which side they supported. So you wound up in 1776 with the Tories, who supported the British in the fight, and the Americans, who were committed to freedom, splitting off into two separate groups. Each one continued to call itself the United States. And so there have been at least 2 entities calling themselves United States ever since. All right. So from basically 1776 until 1851, the only way you can tell the difference between these 2 versions of United States is from the context of the literature or reference that you're dealing with. They were styled the same way, with a small the, the United States, and each one of these played a role in founding the government. The American investor group, known as the United States, right, went on to form the Union. This fellow. Okay? Whereas the Holy Roman Empire group went on to form and give its name to this little guy, way over here in the corner, the municipal government that was formed in 1790. So this confusion between the Union and the municipal government finally got resolved in 1851, at least so far in terms of the style and nomenclature, when they officially changed the name of the Union to the name that it has now, where the is included in the name and is capitalized. The United States, its proper name in the English language. Okay, so and this is important to know. This is another confusion. Another confusion had arisen because the American subcontractor, the Federal Republic, was popularly called the United States too. So at one time, from 1787 to 1851, we had a total of 3 entities calling themselves the United States, and they were all using the same style of name. How's that for a mind-boggling confusion? So let me set that up for you so you can see exactly what they are. Let's see here, 1776 to 1851, the Union. The big kahuna here was called the United States. And then we had the Federation. It was also called the United States. And last but not least, we had the municipal government, all calling themselves just the United States. Can you see a confusion here? Well, thank goodness they finally renamed the Union the United States. At least we got the benefit of a capital T on the to help us out a little bit. Otherwise, from the time period of 1787 to 1861, when the Federal Republic stopped functioning, there's a possibility that you could be talking about any one of these three when you're reviewing historical literature of the time period. So you always have to look at the context. What is the document talking about? What makes sense? Does it make sense that we'd be talking about the Union, the Federal Republic, or the municipal government, given the subject matter? This remains one of the most confused and confusing parts of any study of American government. So I hope that I've helped shed some light on all of this, and I hope that you now have a better sense of our history and how convoluted it really is at times. Thankfully, not everything about it is this confusing. So, stick with me. It gets better. When we talk about the United States of America, things will be considerably simpler. Thank you.